Yeah, Wednesday at midnight.
Okay, I see Grant's there. Grant, yeah, Grant, you're muted. Thank you. So we don't hear the dog barking or whatever chicanery you're up to. And we'll get started here in a little bit. This session is recorded, so, you know, folks can see it at their will. Usually now on Mondays, I'm going to I'll be here physically. The event somewhat or can make it. Get started here in just a couple of minutes. What we've got going on. And I think I need to go back and go to the right course. This looks unfamiliar. Nice. Yeah, I would agree there would be. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get it started. And, you know, you can always pop in and look at the recording of it anyway. I'll make sure I'm recording. And we're at week 3. Now, we're at that point, as I mentioned last time, that I'll be here on Mondays for those who want to come into the lab and see my smiling face. Anyone else, you can see the recordings, and then of course I'll also do a recording on Wednesdays because we have virtual Wednesdays too. So you shouldn't be worried about missing anything because it's going to be recorded. Today we're looking at chapter 3, the Loudon chapter 3, and then a couple of I had a case follow-up number 3, and you had a choice there on should a computer grade your essay or who's the world's top retailer. I ask you to choose one of those. And then we have a second hands-on project that's due on the 15th, which would be Friday. And I want to take a look at it for just a moment because I've had a couple of questions about that, and I want to make sure that everybody's is in the MIS textbook, which is the Loudon textbook. Page 72 has project 211. Okay, and what I want you to do is go over and just do that exercise. And 211, they have you use the software to plan an efficient transportation route. And going over it, and they ask you over to use MapQuest to map out transportation route for business and select the most efficient route. Okay, and then they give you the background there right below that. You're at cross-country transport. And your delivery service is based in Cleveland. They give you some addresses, and then you're going to use MapQuest to find out what is the best route to get there. And this is just to show you some of these types of tools that we use. And in these sessions, now I know we're supposed to go an hour and 15 minutes. Sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. And the reason being is that this class. That I'm trying to incorporate as much hands-on stuff in it, and in the case studies as well. But this is really a course on how do I use IT as a strategic as a basis for my strategy, or how do I use it as to undergird my company strategy. And let's go back over here to the files area over here for a moment. And if you come down now, I'm going to try to do this every week and remember it. To give you, to upload for you the PowerPoint for each chapter, not so that you have, death by PowerPoint, but so that you have something convenient to look at, and often it might help you on quizzes or whatever, but it's probably not a bad idea, and you'll want to download the thing. I'd like to show it in the folder, and then I'd throw it on the desktop so you can unload it. Now, if there's anybody here in the classroom that's having a problem getting to the VMware, I want to make sure everybody knows how that's working. To get to the VMware, the user is your station name, okay, like you're at H22 or whatever, and then there's no password, okay. So you put in the station name and then leave the password blank, okay, and that should take you to a little brown icon up at the left, and then you click that, and it should ready your screen so you can go down into the start menu and you can look at Excel, PowerPoint, or whatever you want to use. And it may come in handy in some of the other classes, but I think we've gotten that problem solved. And this chapter 3, and the Loudon chapter 3, really basically just walks you through the prevailing notion of how we build company strategies, or what is the paradigm that's out there. And if you took the business policy class with me, you'd get triple doses of it. This is Porter's 5 forces model, and this is the relative degree of control you have over suppliers, over your customers, etc. And Loudon takes that framework, okay, and like I said, this stuff's kind of ethereal, and says, all right, how does IT support that? Now, IT kind of does the following kinds of things. One, it allows us to collaborate, okay, and to collaborate on basically a worldwide basis, okay, either in an asynchronous fashion, which is I upload a file and you go look at it at any time you want to, or in a synchronous fashion, like right now there are people, you know, who are watching this, who are listening to this this screencast. So, but this is also saved and stored and posted in the announcements. So if you want, someone can come back and take a look at it. Okay. Now, there are, like YouTube, for example. YouTube originated as an asynchronous environment. That is, people uploaded videos and then people went and watched them. And so everybody's happy. Now, YouTube is slowly but surely moving itself to where it also has a synchronous function, and that is I can load stuff and broadcast real time. And Facebook is doing that too. We've had some things now, like, for example, some live streams of some of the stuff that occurred this summer. The live streams of things that happened back in the so-called in the Arab Spring. So if you're going to use technology to collaborate, you have to make a decision on which of these three do we want to do. Okay. The second piece on this, in terms of how this all kind of fits in the stuff that's there in chapter 3, involves this question of the amount of relative control you have. This is the Porter model over suppliers. Now, if you are a phone company or you're an internet provider, you don't offer content. You're basically the middleman who, like the IMAX over here, broadcasts stuff. And so if you don't have any control over content, okay, or if you have to pay for certain content, it changes your strategic focus. For example, in cable television, at one point, if you wanted to be on cable television, okay, you paid the cable people to carry you. That's how they made their money. And then they sold advertising. ESPN came along and created such a huge demand for it that they said, no, you're going to pay us to carry us. So if you want ESPN, you'll pay ESPN to allow you to broadcast us. And pretty soon everybody got into the act, okay? And so that's why these cable companies are under such cost pressure, and why and then with people cutting the cord. And again, here's another one of these things. The text talks about mass customization, okay? Practical example of that is Hulu. I'll bet all of you, one way or the other, just like me, binge watch TV shows, series, stuff like that. Anything that's on PBS, okay, that's one of those dramas. My wife binge watches those out the wazoo. She saves them and watches them all. Or she'll go over to the PBS website and she'll binge watch. Okay. And you know, I'm kind of like that with some stuff as well. But again, that changes the strategy of, say, a Hulu in terms of, okay, how do we, as a platform, how do we pay to get that content? How much do we make you pay as the consumer? What do we pay the people on the front end? And that's why also these people are, they're for them strategically, it's an issue of should we become a content provider? Hulu, I think Amazon has some series they've created. I think Hulu has television series or live stream or stream broadcast series they've created. And for somebody like, let's say, like the most venerable programs on television probably would be the late night TV, okay? And so they have slowly but surely crafted those programs so they're designed to be there for the person who watched for an hour or however long they might last, and then they'll post those 5 or 10 minutes of the really cool stuff that happens, if there's anything cool that happens, on YouTube or at the NBC website or whatever. So this change, and when we talk about the collaborative nature, this changes how you and I interact with content providers, how you and I interact with media people, and that's just in that one industry. That doesn't even have anything to do with like this era, like the text talks about mass customization, or you go into a car dealer and you sit home online and you build your car with, you know, down to everything that's in it, and then they find if you're credit worthy, and yeah, they build and they say, okay, here's the dealer, and the dealer will call you and pick the thing up. You don't have to go in anymore. Or you have the end of the intermediary. When people go shopping for cars these days, particularly used vehicles or pre-owned vehicles, they'll go to one of these car sites. Okay, and I think there's the one, Carfax, that checks to see if there's been wrecks or if the thing's been flooded or stuff like that. Eliminating the intermediary, that was the used car dealer, and then there's also and they'll give you what they consider a fair price. There are even some websites now when you go out and search this, say, well, here's the same vehicle over here for $1,000 more versus over here. Completely unheard of. Okay, so as you look at that text, pay it close there in chapter 3. Pay very close attention to what the author's saying as he's saying, all right, we take IT and we lay it on these strategic, this framework for strategy, and again, Porter's 5 forces, and how do we use technology to get that achieved? How do we take technology and make it a strategic weapon? Now, the same thing goes in terms of taking talent, okay, and using talent all over the world. All of you, at some point or another, will be working for a company that works with employees in several time zones, maybe several continents. And that's just because the technology is going to enable it. Now, this primitive thing called Zoom that we use is nothing, okay? I sit in on a conference, a video conference platform this summer where there was a panel, 6 people, and there were 20 rooms of 50 people each. So there were 1,000 of us on there, and you could go room to room and people could talk to each other. I could pop on somebody's box and they'd pop up in my screen, or we could listen, and it was incredible. We're just going to see more and more of this type of stuff, okay? For the simple reason the technology enables us to do that and to collaborate in those ways and take talent and grab it wherever it's used. So chapter 3 is a real heavy dose of that, and so I would encourage you to take a look at that file that's over there, okay? And it's the Loudon PowerPoint chapter 3, and I have that for you. And each week I'll try to upload it for you. And then if you want, take it and download it to your desktop. Don't open it up there because it'll be forever. But it might be a way to. It's going to be essentially a lot of the of the figures and so forth that are out of the textbook. Okay. And as I've mentioned before, this class it's extremely conceptual because it's trying to say, okay, at an enterprise level, how do I use technology? Okay. Now we know technology allows people to communicate. So we've got some different ways we can do that. And again, what's happening with media platforms, social media, how text messaging, email, all of those kinds of Instagram, all of those technologies, okay, that are being used. And a lot of times what happens is they're used out there by just in a non-commercial kind of it's just somebody develops, it's like Twitter, and then all of a sudden every company in the world has to have a Twitter account, or they've got to have an Instagram account. Why? Well, everybody else has one, and then they find ways to use it or they don't. So that chapter 5 is one. Now, one of the other challenges that's embedded in this, and I'll go back to the modules for a moment. Okay, and this case on should a computer grade your essay? Now, this is a seemingly kind of a funny or kind of interesting little case study. But embedded in it is this issue of what we call intelligent agents or artificial intelligence, and how do we use those? And should we use those? For example, when you go to buy something on credit, okay, your data gets submitted off to all the credit agencies, and there's not a human being doesn't look at it until all the algorithms have washed over it to see what you look like in terms of a credit score. And what you don't see is the person to whom you gave the application. They're looking at a dashboard that gives all kinds of information about payment patterns, etc. But that's the back end that they see from your inquiry in terms of getting the credit. So that type of thing, how it changes, okay, how you do business, is one of those things again that ask yourself, well, how many times a day is a credit report inaccurate? Or like Equifax, how many times a year we have a giant dump? And I think they said it's like 45 million or 30 million people whose accounts may be compromised because Equifax had a backdoor issue, and that is someone came in and found a way in through their defenses and accessed and has all this information. So those kinds of issues that are out there are worth looking at. But this case was designed to make you think about that. Now the other, and we'll pop on this for just a second, then I'll go through SpeedGrader and we'll take a look at some of your responses, was the question of who's the world's top retailer? And this one's over from page 116. If you've got your text with you for a second, let's take a look, okay? And this is the question of Amazon versus Walmart, okay? Now, this is a useful case for us and an important case because we have two companies that have come at this from two different directions. Let me explain what I mean. Walmart recognized early on that if you're going to be a successful retailer, successful retailing starts with being a successful realtor, because location is everything in the retail trade. If you don't believe me, next time you're out driving around, look and go to some corner stop sign and look, and you'll see somebody's open and they're doing good business. And you look at the opposite corner, and the business went away. There's nothing there. That's because drive time, traffic times, and patterns differ. Okay, so Walmart understood this, and they said also, we can't compete yet, okay, on the basis of being able to offer people really the lowest price because we don't have the purchasing power. Now, I'm taking you way back in the 1970s. Walmart's been around a long time. But what they did is they opened stores out in regional areas, out in the sticks, where people could come and they could get stuff and they could buy groceries and so forth. And the corner grocers, yeah, 30 miles away in the little town where they're didn't care, or the car or the hardware stores. And then Walmart began, as they grew and they got more profitable, they began to move themselves into what we now would call the exurbs. And then they began to superimpose, put themselves into the suburbs. And today they're everywhere. Okay? So they've come at this from the process of being a physical retailer, having massive warehouses of stuff, and then Sam's Club is a derivative of that. And now all of a sudden, Walmart has discovered, gee, you can order your stuff online and you can combine. Anybody, I've experienced their delivery. You go order and pick the stuff up. I didn't like it because they didn't communicate with me and say, hey, they don't have that type of thing. Would you accept one of these substitutes? They just threw in a substitute, gave me my bill, and I said, this is what I thought I would have the experience. This is not the experience I wanted. But they're trying to work themselves through, and they have their Walmart, they have their website, but they're still kind of evolving. Now, the one thing they do have is an excellent internal MIS, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. In this case, coming at it from the completely opposite direction is Amazon. Amazon started online. Amazon said, we can have inventory as big as many servers we can fill. And what Amazon has discovered is that they what we call the long tail. They make more money off of all kinds of odds and ends, books and records and things, than they do off of the Harry Potter movies or stuff like that. They sell just about everything, and now they have affiliated retailers, okay, who they provide an online presence to. By you go to Amazon, but you may not be buying from Amazon. You may buy from someone else. And now Amazon's coming the exact direction, because now they have distribution centers, because if you buy it from them, they got to get it to you. So they're trying to work through this issue of how do we use these distribution centers to get the maximum effect possible. And I think they have 1 or 2 retail outlets open. So these are 2 companies that came from the same thing. But one thing about them that they have in common is they both have an excellent MIS. They have an excellent inventory system and inventory control. In fact, Amazon's is so good that governments, large corporations, buy their data warehousing services because there's none better. The only one that's even comes close is Walmart. And theirs is just absolutely fantastic. So this is this second case is kind of interesting because you're looking at 2 companies that are coming at this from a different approach, but they have, they're coming at it from a different approach, but they have some similarities, and that is they're mass retailers. And they both, because they do that, they both have to have that type of internal system, an inventory control system, and data system, and the analytics. Like either one of their sites you go and you buy stuff, and then you'll start to see things pop up of, well, maybe you want to buy this too, or you'll see the pop-up ads appear. And that's why that's such a good case to see and to compare the 2 of them, because they're coming at this from opposite ways, but they're going to end up in the same place, and that is a gigantic intermediary or warehouse out there, or catalog, if you will, and that their problem is what we call the last mile problem. Now, the textbook doesn't talk about this, but for this to have any sense of reality, it always has to deal with what we call the last mile problem. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you have a warehouse, if you're Amazon or you're Walmart, you may have your own distribution center, okay? But eventually you've got to get it to FedEx or somebody that gets transported. That's not the problem. These transportation systems are set up on what they call a hub and spokes environment, which means we feed into this giant hub, okay, on this side, and then we funnel everything out. The problem becomes that last mile. It's one thing to say, okay, I've got 700 packages that go to Oklahoma City. It's another thing to say I have 700 packages, 50 of which are in locations at least 4 or 5 miles from each other. So how do I route that, and how do I get that to people? That's the last mile problem. The last mile problem is the same for people like cable providers. They have trunk lines. Oklahoma has one of the largest and deepest trunk lines for internet trunk line in the world, coming right through the middle of the state. And we're on the trunk. We've got just a little bitty, we put our feet in that stream just a little bit here, although you wouldn't believe it. But the question is, okay, if I want to get cable from the trunk line, okay, out here to this little subdivision or a little town or whatever, that's expensive, okay, because it means a specialized kind of break off. And so that last mile problem is the one that can be really problematic for them. So that's not discussed too much in the text, but again, you know, two good cases, one dealing with more the question of these autonomous agents, and the other dealing with the question of retailers and what do they have to do in this current age in order to survive. Now, I'm just going to take just a couple of minutes, and we'll pop through the speed grader, okay? And I want to say I've had some very good responses on all of these, and this is one taking a look at a couple of those at Walmart versus Amazon and giving us some price comparisons. Okay. And I'm certain there are little price comparison bots out there, just like there are for travel. Okay. Another one of those where you have, there's Travelocity, and I forget how many of them. I mean, there's just, you know, they have all these different places that will get you the best deal on travel. So this is nicely done. Okay. And then they're talking about Amazon purchasing Whole Foods. Now, why do they purchase Whole Foods? Well, they wanted the branding and they wanted the market, because the people who shop at Whole Foods fit a profile of people that are very similar to people that shop at Amazon or go get coffee and buy specialized coffee, and they fit a certain educational level, certain profile, income profile. So Whole Foods is a great grab for them. Okay. So that was kind of a blow on their part. Okay. Now, Walmart, as he mentions here, made their own purchase, okay, of a retailer by the name of BISS, okay, and they have some smaller online enterprises. What we're seeing happen here, okay, in this case, this response does a pretty good job of it, although I wouldn't expect you to see it. That's where you're taking the course, is to understand that the technology speeds up the process of consolidation. Every industry in the United States has 3 to 6 companies that dominate that industry. They have 80, 90% of the business, okay? And that's simply because cream rises to the top. The best succeed. The people that are lousy or don't know what they're doing or don't manage their money well, they go bye-bye eventually. You wind up with these firms. And sometimes a Walmart will buy up a company or will buy it to get the talent. They'll buy it to get the brand recognition. They'll buy it to get eyeballs. Who knows? But they're now in this acquisition, okay, of small online retailers, because they may want to say, we need to have an experience base to understand how this works, because they don't. I routinely go in just to see how good Walmart is in terms of their product, of their search engine, and into their website, and I can put in a search term and I get all kinds of stuff. I go to Amazon and it nails it. That's just because Amazon's has a better algorithm right now than Walmart. But Walmart has tremendous real estate and tremendous inventory control and a tremendous distribution system. So, you know, it's going to be a while to see, you know, who will succeed. We saw and this is why also sometimes with these lectures, I prefer to kind of blend in some other things to kind of understand this text really in its fullest. You would also probably need to have a text on a little bit on the history of business in the United States, because so much of that's interwoven. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Back at the turn of the century, Sears, and what was then known as Sears and Roebuck, was the darling of everybody. Why? Because they had solidified the concept of good customer service. Okay. They also had a catalog. I remember my parents would order stuff from the Sears catalog. They'd deliver a catalog to you, and they'd go through and they'd order stuff, and it'd come in the mail. They used the Sears store to sell a high margin. They would use their retail outlets to sell high margin goods and products. They sold a lot of hardware, and they were it. Well, of course, time has changed the buying. If you go into most Sears today, if there's one in the mall, if there's anyone in the mall, it looks like a ghost town. But they understood that concept of having a mass, being an intermediary on a mass basis. So what this case is good in the sense that it brings in this issue of their purchasing, okay? And you're right. Now, unfortunately for you, Miss Turnage, who left last spring, worked for Walmart in their IT department. So if there was anybody, it's a shame you didn't take her, didn't have her, because she's worked in the best IT department in terms of inventory control and management in the entire world. There is no one any better. She worked for them for several years and then quit because everybody who works for them is on 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week call. And when they have a problem, you go and fix the problem, and you don't leave and go home until the problem is fixed, because they know they've got to have that, because they got to have that to sustain all of their stores. So it's an unfortunate thing. But from a strategic basis, you've got these two firms who are kind of coming together. They have a similar issue, and that is, how do I be? They have two problems. One, how can I be the best intermediary in the world? Okay. And number two, how do I overcome the last mile problem? And that is getting the stuff to that customer. And we call it the last mile problem because if you're in the logistics business, your FedEx, your UPS, you also have hundreds and hundreds of little delivery services as stuff gets broken down and stuff gets delivered. And that's where the pricing becomes it. That's where things get pricey. So if you order something, you say, I'd like it next day, and you go, why do they want $40? They want, and out of the $40 for an overnight delivery, UPS or a UPS contractor or FedEx or a FedEx contractor will get about 60 or 70% of that money. Okay? Because they've got the personnel to route the stuff and get it to you, and get it to you when they promise to get it to you. So there's a lot embedded in this case. Now, I think, and we'll go through here, it's got some good data in terms of the companies and their stock prices. So this is nicely done, and this is really a lot of what I'm expecting to see. Okay, not too bad at all. Pretty good. Now let's take a look at here. We got then this is, we're talking about the essay grading system, and the holy grail for anybody who teaches is this. I take your document, I feed it to some kind of software. It finds all the spelling errors, all the grammatical errors. It finds where you didn't talk about a certain topic like you should have. It wasn't APA formatted, and it shoots it out with this perfect score that you can't argue with, and I just move on. Okay? And that's the holy grail. They're getting close. They truly are. They've got some systems. I saw some a couple of summers ago that absolutely blew me out of my chair. And what they did is they gave us some essays to grade, and then we had a rubric, and then they took, and we fed those essays, and this is a little grading thing that McGraw-Hill has put together, and my scores on those essays, and they said, do everything, okay, and make sure you beat the student up about their writing, and make sure you beat them up about formatting, all the important things, you know, and give them a score. And that software would be within 5 points of what I'd score, a little bit higher or lower. I thought, ooh, man, I'm coming in, I'm in this industry at the wrong time. Of course, you know, in the future, you'll have a section of this and probably 1,000 people all over the world. They'd love that. And I think that's the ulterior motive of putting us all, having us try to do this to do it in a hybrid format. Now we'll take a look at this. Yeah, we're looking for that better way to grade essays. It's also to standardize it. You know, when I've looked at 75 papers at 11 o'clock at night, but it's all in your future. So if you get a C, and then you get kicked out of school, and soon you're homeless, and you're out on the side of the road, and you're asking for dollars and nickels. It all started with that bad essay you sent me. And when your friends drive by, they'll stop. If you're at a stop sign, they'll give you $1 because they feel guilty, because they wrote that essay for you and they didn't do a good enough job. Oh, whoops, that's a problem. One of these is finding these things. How many of you have to submit your writing to is it Respondus? Turnitin.com. You have to, and you get a percentage back of how close you are to everybody. It's interesting. Okay, don't raise your hand if I got caught. I'm not interested in that. But here's the piece of it. It may not give us all the same information. Now, let's see what John Kent Calhoun had to say. Okay. Save time, okay. And what would I do with the save time? I guess probably have more essays to feed in to the system. I'm not sure. One of the things I wish that we could do with this, and I haven't figured out exactly how to do it, would be to be able to give you verbal feedback, okay? The little icon. And I've got to figure out how to do that. I can't get that down yet. I'd really prefer to do that. So, hey, it's right. I think it's a lot more personable than just, you know, download it. How do you have to submit your stuff and use Word track changes? Now those marks the red stuff and all that. Okay. Well, probably they're being merciful to you. But the rturnitin.com, yeah, that's winner. Now, here's the question I would ask you. If the machine can do it better than a professor, would you want the machine or the professor to grade the essay? But why? Why?
Because they know the assignment and they know you personally, so they're going to smile when they read your assignment. As a computer, it's just going to be like, this is terrible.
Okay. But what if it's a nice computer?
They won't be.
No? Okay.
Trust me, on Turnitin.com, it's not nice.
What do they do? They give you a percentage of how similar it is to other stuff?
And how terrible it is.
Oh, okay. So they tell you all the errors and all that. Okay. Okay.
There's no grace.
So they don't give you a grade. They just show you all the errors and
there's no grace.
There's no grace to. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Would anybody else? Would anybody want the computer to grade it? I see one person. Okay. Now, from now on, I'm going to turn all your work to turn it in, and let's see what happens. Uh-oh. No, I don't want to do that. No, I'm kidding. One of the interesting things is with a system like that, which I've used, if you turn it in, it builds up a data bank, and it has an algorithm. And pretty soon, you start seeing when you've had 50 people, 500 people respond to the same essay question, you're going to get some similarities. Especially if you say, go read this essay by so-and-so. And then they cite it and list it, the references, and you'll get a report. And so these people are using the same reference. I've used that system before. I don't like it at all because I had students it would tell me the students were sharing the same source, and they needed to be, because that was the assignment. I asked them to go and critique an article. So it's interesting here. And I hope as we do this scrum, somebody says, oh, Lordy, got one missing there. That's this. So what Grant had to say. Okay. Now let me see a show of hands. How many of you think Amazon's going to beat Walmart? I see one hand. How many of you think Walmart will beat Amazon? How many of you don't care as long as you can get your Doritos? Cheap as possible.
What's your Dorito flavor of choice?
That's tough because I like the Cool Ranch, but I like the other one, the real salty one. So I like to buy one of each and then do them together. And maybe put a little chipotle on it. That'll give it a little zing. Maybe some salsa. Yeah. At my age, you grab for any kind of fun you can get. Because that's why older people like real spicy food, so I know I'm alive. I don't go to Furs and eat all that stuff. It's like eating mush. Or I'd be putting pepper and all kinds of junk on it. So, but I'd have to say, cool. I like both types. My favorite though is chili Fritos.
Oh.
Have anybody had those? Oh, they're good. They're good. Oh, I do. Oh yeah, that and the Diet Dr. Pepper. And my throat's, I want my throat. It's about ready to explode. I want it just to be throbbing. Okay, so we got a good response here in terms of looking at what's going on and in terms of their financial performance. I gave you probably some background. Now, how many of you know that you can use Microsoft Word to develop your bibliography? Are you aware of that? Okay. If you're not, if you've never done it, I'm going to show you real quickly. This is an MIS course, and this is about doing those kinds of things nicely. So let me work on all programs here for a second. Well, I'll find a Word document on my machine, and I'll show you. And you're not being nice today, so play nice with me. All right. Let's say there's Cardinal Buddy. See? See if I can find a Word doc here. Well, I don't do enough writing with Word. Okay. Here we go. Now, if you've not used this before, you'll find it's a nice little tool. And I'll show you real quickly. Again, this is just one of those nice little things. If you click on references, okay, maybe. If you click on the references tab, you're going to see a thing over here, citations and bibliography, okay? And if you want to, you can manage your sources. Now I'll show you real quickly. You click this, and it gives you a drop-down menu where you can choose the type of source that you're working with, okay? If you have a master list, it'll let you pull that out of it. But you're gonna lurk. It has you click new, and what I like to do is show all the bibliographic fields, and then everything's got a red star. Put the information in there. Now, what this is really helpful with is with those pesky sites when you go out to a website and it's really good, and you're flummoxing around on how to put that into an APA format. This will do it in APA 6. So I would encourage you to use it. And then once you put that in there, boom, and then when you click insert bibliography or references, it'll put them right back at the order, put them in the order. Isn't that nice? So got that off a little bit there, but maybe something that will help you in terms of what you're working with. Now, let me close this off. Let's go back here. And so the list I had to say, okay, company, and the only case that I completed there is the same case, okay? Okay, the two, okay, so so far, okay. Now I like to do this seminar style because this is how a seminar really works. Everybody writes a paper and then they exchange them. Okay, so there are no secrets. It's all out there, okay? And I'm still looking to see social media. Okay, expectations. Got some good references here. I'm trying to find out really if they ever did make a recommendation. Yep. Okay. Well, a little, a little bit of equivocality there. Here's Luke's. All right. Okay. How many of you chose the Amazon versus Walmart? How many of you chose the computer? Okay. Now, there's a whole bunch of you in here, and let's talk about this for a minute. Why did you choose about the computer grading or essay?
It was the first one in the book.
It was the first one in the book? Okay.
Sounded more interesting to me.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Sounded more interesting. It was the first one in the book. How many of you think we ought to use those tools? No? You prefer to have the professor grade it themselves?
Like in the middle of it.
Okay.
Because when I was reading it, it said that they would pay their graders $40 to $60 an hour, and they would grade. It would take them 2 to 3 minutes to grade a paper. But with the software that they have, it would grade like 16,000 papers in 20 minutes. I mean, it's more efficient, but it loses that teacher-student relationship.
Okay. 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 How many of you have gotten something back from a written assignment and had your feelings hurt? The writing's a very personal thing. And that's one of the reasons I tend to shy away from doing a whole lot of essay grading until with graduate students. I feel a little freer to be more frank. But, you can really hurt somebody. And writing is one of those things that's very personal. It's a very personal thing. And if you get a paper back and you've worked on it, it's full of red ink, it can be a bummer. Okay. So you probably have noticed that about me, and where my instruction, at least on these things, is keep it short, keep it simple. Okay. We do have a business comm course, and you can go learn how to, and we have English courses. The truth is, what we often ask you to do may not exactly jive with what out in the world they're after. They usually want short, sweet, bullet points, summaries, etc. Let's look at this and see the who they thought was the better Walmart. And let me ask all of you. I'll do a quick poll here. 20 years, let's say 30 years from now, who do you think will be larger, Walmart or Amazon? I hear an Amazon. Why?
Because Walmart already has I feel like they're pretty mature in their business, and they already have their concrete stores, and there's only so much they can do online. Whereas Amazon, they're just starting when it comes to
Okay. Okay. So you think Amazon has a little bit more growth that they can do? Yes.
Also, I think Walmart is going to run into the same issue that McDonald's did as far as oversaturation goes. They're going to become too common.
Yeah.
So people no longer choose McDonald's the rate they did 10, 15 years ago. Even though McDonald's was heavily saturated then, they were at a perfect spot, but they continue to push to grow.
Yeah.
And they oversaturated the market, that's causing people to see them as no longer necessary.
Yeah.
So Walmart, I think, will run into that issue very soon. With 2/3, I think it's said, of the population less than 15 minutes away from Walmart.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to grow even more. I think they're going to run into that issue.
How many of you have been in a Walmart market? Not the big store, but the market. Yeah, there's one down the street from us. It's a little bit different feeling, a little more limited in terms of what they handle. It seemed like a little more upscale. I would agree that I think Walmart probably may have hit some of its limits. But let's say if they have, how would you use technology to survive if you're Walmart? Let's say you've hit the limits of your physical growth, and the commonplace. How could you use IT to overcome that? How could you make it a better experience? Yes.
They should move into social media.
Okay.
If you think about instead of Twitter, you have Walmart.
Okay.
Because there are things like people of Walmart.
Okay.
And so with those people of Walmart, they're became a big thing. Post pictures of people of Walmart. They could even branch out to new areas.
Okay. Hashtag people of Walmart. There's one waiting to happen. There probably is something out there. Social media. What else? How else might they use IT?
Continue to personalize the shopping experience.
Okay. Okay. And how might they do that?
I mean, it's kind of the same as talking about earlier. You know, like whenever every time you buy something, the record step.
Okay.
I mean, just continuing to use that as far as like email offers. But then even more than that, whenever someone comes into the store, utilizing the cell phone's RFID tags.
Okay.
And then giving instant offers based on what that person buys when they walk.
Okay. Okay. Now, Walmart did an interesting experiment, and I apologize, I can't remember exactly what it was, but Ms. Turner told me about it. There were 2 or 3 stores where if you signed up with, it was an experimental thing, you signed up with them and they had your phone. You got your stuff, okay? And as you walk, and you didn't even go through a checkout, you just bagged your stuff, and they'd hit the tag on that item, and then just charge your account, and it would pop up on your phone. You have these items. This is the amount of money. You accept, yes or no, and boom, and you're done. So you didn't even go through a checkout, and people went bonkers. They hated it. They didn't like it, so they dropped that method because people felt uncomfortable with it because they were afraid. This felt strange. Like as they were walking through, and this wasn't a thing you'd stand there. You could just walk right through and have all those items. In fact, what it would do is the basket was going around. If you carried a basket or whatever, it would just be adding those items up before you ever got there. So they hit some resistance. What about Amazon? Where do you think they could go afoul? Or what would you think would be the biggest threat in terms of IT that they might be facing that could hurt their growth?
I just think they acquired Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a problem for them. Whole Foods is very, it's not for like inorganic.
Okay.
And if they fall behind there, I feel like there's a lot of smaller grocery stores coming up that are like Whole Foods and they're local.
Okay.
All over the city. And they fall behind. I think that's a $16 million failure.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Now, all of you, and I'm certain I'm probably preaching to the choir, are probably well, not me, but I bet probably half to 3/4 of you probably every weekend guzzle a bunch of craft beer, and I'm praying for you. But at one time, 85% of all of the beer consumed in the United States was consumed by about 5 brands. But now you have all these little craft brewing places that have sprung up. And then I won't count this against you, and I'll pray for you anyway. But which brewer really throws themselves out there is we're a craft brew kind of people. There's one of them. Absolutely. The Sammy Adams, they've got brews for different seasons. Okay. And I don't know. Dr. Flint had a case one time. I tried some. It wasn't bad. Okay. But what we're finding is that is with those craft beers, those specialized beer places, the little craft brewers have really made some inroads. And this is where this thing of people sometimes wanting something that's not so mass marketed that makes it a little bit different. Another thing that's emerged on them is water, different types of waters that are being sold, and then tea. If you go look at a beverage aisle and then all these power drinks. I mean, have you used any of these energy drinks? Not that you'd admit it. You probably the 5-hour energy thing. The guy, the baseball player, there's a lot of caffeine in those things. I tried one at a time, and it's like I was going like, woo. Have you had one of those those caffeine things? Whew, brother, man, it really is a lot of caffeine, isn't it? Yeah, I was talking a lot faster than I am now. I was going, you are really jacked up. And I said, yeah, I had that 5 energy hour drink. She says, I don't think you need any more.
Funny, the 5-hour energy was created by a guy who has ADHD.
Really?
It was used to calm him down. Just before medication.
Yeah.
And he was in, I think it was Pakistan or India. And he came up with the formula and then came to the U.S. and couldn't sell it as a medicinal product
Okay. Yeah, that's wild. Well, it's some interesting stuff to think about in terms of these two firms. But again, in chapter 3, and you can take a quick tour of it using the PowerPoint if you want, if that helps you. Or you can just, let me give you an example of how this can be so incredibly, just incredible. This summer, my wife and I purchased a vehicle. Okay, it's a high-end vehicle, and so we went through the process and all this stuff. And the sales consultant was what it was called. It wasn't a sale. He was our vehicle consultant. That's what he is. And anyway, when we got our paperwork, which included the booklet for the vehicle, okay, the booklet had a picture of the vehicle exactly like ours, all the same features. And he went in the back and in about 5 minutes came back out with that booklet. Nicely done. And I said, how'd you do? He said, we have a high-speed printer, blah, 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 blah. And so everything is completely customized on that vehicle. And now it's interesting because I get emails from them saying, here's a school to go how to learn to drive this thing to do some adventures. And I keep telling my wife, we got to go out here and do this. And she goes, oh, no, I don't think so. Huh? We bought a Land Rover. And so it's nice. And and I keep telling you, the other day I said, hey, it went through a river in Iceland. She said, it was drowned. So I guess I have to go to the store. But it was amazing how well they had all that stuff pulled together, and they used IT to do it. And then they keep sending emails. It's okay, upload, and I'll get emails from. I'll get an email that will have an upload of somebody who's bought one of those vehicles, and they're out. Hey, I'm here in the Mojave Desert, and making me feel like a total schmuck for buying one in the first place, and then driving to the grocery store. How stupid is that? But what can I say? It was a bucket list deal, and I've done the bucket list. I'll probably end up being a money pit with the thing and regretting I ever did it. But now, this chapter, and again, if you got your textbook, or you want to take a look at figure 3.8, the Porter's model, okay, this is where the authors are saying, all right, in terms of new market entrants, substitute products, suppliers, and customers, all right, how does IT play out in all of that, okay? And certainly it does in terms of new entrants. Think about for a moment the travel industry. Somebody name with me some of the travel. There's Travelocity. What else? So who? Expedia. Who else? Okay. Who else? Okay. There's Airbnb. That's the one where you can stay a place, right? Okay. And probably they have creepy stuff in their shower, but you'll never know till you get there. Too late. Should have gone to Holiday Inn. But think about that. All of a sudden, boom. I have a good friend who's a real estate agent, and it drives him crazy when I go. There's Trulia, Zillow. Have you ever used any of those? They're really fantastic because they'll show you a tour of the house. They'll show you everything about it, when it was purchased, what the purchase prices are, the comps, everything in that neighborhood. So it really changes your shopping experience in terms of buying a home. And these are new entrants who've come into that market, who are in the real estate business now and are really putting a hurt on the old style agents that would go grab the MLS. Well, folks, it's about let's see, 2:51, and let's see if there's anyone else I can embarrass. Okay, this is pretty good. All right, not bad here. Okay, analytics. This is good. Now, this is an excellent. Okay, Trevor. All right, went out to analytics. Okay, Aristolytics. I don't even know how you pronounce it. Aristolytics. Okay, and they give you some analytics on your essay. Now, one of the things that you'll want to be mindful of, okay, and we're going to pop back over here for a moment to the modules, and we'll into the syllabus section and see what you got coming up. Okay, You've got on the 15th, hands-on project number 2 and the Loudon chapter 3. Now that hands-on project is the one, let me pop up here because I had a question from someone today about it. Page 72, if you guys take your textbook, take a look at it, okay? And this is 212, and so that's going to be due the 15th. And that's 211 on page 2. Yeah, the map. That's using MapQuest. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. And I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how you use MapQuest, because this is one of these things where we're starting to use geographic information systems as a strategic weapon for a company. And so you'll want to take a look at MapQuest and do the exercise the best you can and use screenshots, and we'll be good to go. Folks, thank you very much, and we'll call it a wrap, and I will see you next Monday, okay? And let's see, I'm going to mute everybody out there if they're muted. I see Houston, you're unmuted. And Erica and Houston, Robert and Samuel, thank you much. Samuel, you were star here today. We had your essay up. No need to thank.
Okay.
You guys have a good one now. I'm sorry? How do I get your... In terms of, these are... Yeah, these are people who are out remote. They're probably out sucking beers and stuff and smoking cigars, laughing at us. Yeah, you can be remote. You could listen from anywhere. Yeah. Or if you can't make it, then you can look at the recording. We're a hybrid. We got run pass. We have a bounced offense. Speaking of that, I was stunned. I was really surprised, to say the least. I was just, yeah, that was pretty wild. I thought it was.